Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of this tutorial where I show you how to code Google's Dino game. So in the last video we managed to code our moving background by implementing the parallax infinite scrolling background algorithm. So let me show you what we have for now. So we have our screen and we have the moving background. Now in this video we're gonna be coding the Dino class. So we're basically adding our Dino to the game. We're gonna be able to jump, and we also gonna be able to make our Dino run or make the illusion that he's running. So yeah, let's start coding. Okay, so I'm gonna start by showing you the Dino assets that we have for this game. So we have 3 images: Dino 0, Dino 1, and Dino 2. Dino 0, it's basically our Dino with both legs on the ground. Dino 1 has, I think it's the left leg on the ground, and Dino 2 has the right leg on the ground. So let me explain you what we are going to do. We're basically going to save these 3 images inside an array list, and by using a for loop or a while loop, we're going to loop through our array, and we're gonna bleed these 3 images in order, and we're gonna make the illusion that our Dino is basically running. So that's why we need 3 images. So okay, let's start by creating our Dino class right here on top of the background class. So go ahead and type class Dino. We're gonna create our init method. So remember, our init method is basically where we are going to create our Dino. So we're gonna be adding some width, some height, and some other properties that we need our Dino to have. So let's leave it empty for now, and let's create other methods. Now remember, on part 1 I told you that we're going to have these 3 methods inside of pretty much every class we create for this game. So let's create those 3 methods. We have our update right here. We need to receive self as param. Also we have the show method. We're gonna receive self as parameter, and we have our set texture method, in which we're going to receive also self as parameter. Okay, so remember, the update method is gonna be responsible of basically updating the position, or any visual aspect of our Dino. In this case, the show method is the one responsible of showing in this case the Dino, or the sprite, of showing the sprite once we have updated it. And the set texture method is basically responsible of setting the texture, or basically converting our PNGs, these 3 PNGs, into game sprites. So okay, let's start by adding some properties to our Dino. So we're gonna have the self.width. I'm gonna use 44 for this. So remember, you can use any dimensions you want or you like, but I strongly recommend you to use the same dimensions that I use to avoid problems. So height is going to be also 44 pixels. The initial position of our Dino is going to be 10 for the X, so 10 on the X-axis, and I think maybe 80 for the Y-axis. And let's call our set texture once we create this, and once we have our texture ready, we need to show it, right? So this is going to be our init method for now. We're gonna be adding some other properties in a moment. Okay, so let's start by creating our set texture method, which is pretty simple. So remember that we did this on our background class. So I'm gonna copy this, I'm gonna paste it right here, and we're gonna change some things. So we're gonna start by changing obviously the path. So instead of background, we're gonna have our Dino 0, which is this image. Let me show you. So we're gonna have this as our initial image. What else? Okay, this is correct and this is correct. So it's pretty much the same method. We're going to be changing something here because we need this path to change depending on what image we want to show. So in this case, we want to start by showing the Dino 0, but this is not going to be the same once we are playing the game. We're going to be showing the first one, then the second one, and so on, so on. So this is basically what I explained to you at the beginning of the video. Okay, so we have our texture. Now, inside of the show method, go ahead and type the following. So basically screen.bleed. I mean, you can copy the show method also from here. It's pretty much the same. I'm gonna copy it. Just paste it. So remember, it's a screen.bleed, and we want to bleed our texture that we already created here, and we want to bleed it, well, on a location that it's going to be the self.x that we already have it, and the self.y that we already have it here. So make sure you have the init method in this order. So first you create the width and the height, then you create the position of our Dino, then you set the texture, and you're gonna be using the width and the height, and then you want to show the last thing you want to do is, well, basically show our Dino sprite, in which we're gonna use the texture and the, well, position, so X and Y. So let's go to our background class. I'm sorry, to our game class, and we're gonna be creating our Dino. So our game is going to have a Dino. So go ahead and type self.dino equals a new Dino. And yeah, we're not sending any param. And inside of our main loop, or no, inside of our main function, we're gonna be showing our Dino. So right after we show our background, we're gonna show our Dino. Let me actually put a comment here. So I'm gonna put something like this, background, and right here we're gonna have our Dino. Okay, now we're gonna type game.dino.show. Now this is going to be a little bit more complicated because we need to update our Dino image, as I told you. But for now, I want you to see well, our Dino sprite bleeded on our screen. So I'm gonna save and run the file. And as you can see, we have our Dino there standing, but you can see the problem, right? So basically our Dino, well, it's not moving, and it's not giving the illusion that he's walking or running. So we need to change this. Now, the first thing I want to do, and this, well, you don't have to do this. So we're going to be typing a lot game.dino. So instead of typing this, I want to save into a new variable our Dino, well, our Dino object. So outside of the main loop, make sure to type Dino equals game.dino. And that's it. And let me put here objects, and that's it. So instead of typing game.dino, we can just type dino.show, and this will work, well, just fine. Okay, so let's go to our Dino class to make some changes. So as I told you, we need, well, this path to be changing depending on what sprite we want to show or what texture we want to bleed. So I'm gonna make this a variable. Well, not this, but I want to make this number a variable that we're gonna be changing. So right here inside of our init method, go ahead and type self dot let's see, I'm gonna call it texture num, and we're gonna set it equal to 0. So now instead of, well, directly coding the 0, we want to, well, append our new variable. So before this string, before these quotation marks, go ahead and type an F. You'll see why. So like this, F, and instead of typing 0, go ahead and type these, well, these brackets, and put self.texture num. So like this. Now we have done, well, one part of the code. The next part is basically updating these numbers. So we're gonna do that inside of our update function. So right here we wanna type the following. We're gonna type self.texture num. It's gonna be equal to self.texture num, so our actual texture num, plus 1, because we wanna increment it, but this has to be model 3. So let me explain this line of code. Now let's say we have our first texture, so the 0th, the one with the, well, with the 0. If we add 1, that will be 1, and model 3 will be the remainder of dividing by 3. So in this case, it will be 1. Let's say we have 1. If we add 1, we're going to have 2, and 2 model 3 is going to be 2, so no problem. Now, if we have 2, it's going to be the following. So 2 plus 1 is 3, but 3 model 3 is going to give us a remainder of 0. So we're going to go back to our initial texture, and this is basically a loop. So we're gonna have 0, 1, and 2. In other words, I mean, this line of code is going to return either 0, either 1, or either 2, which is what we want. Now once we change our texture num, we want to show it, right? So we'll show our texture, so set texture right here, because we want to change our path. So like this. Now we can call this update method inside of our main function. So right here, before we show it, we want to update it. This is basically going to be the same through all the video. We're gonna update an object, and then we want to show it. I'm gonna save the file and run it to see if it works. Okay, so as you can see, we have our Dino. This is kind of funny because he's running too fast. Or he's moving the legs too fast. We're gonna fix this in a moment. But yeah, we basically did what we wanted to do, which is, well, change the texture of our Dino. So let's fix this bug. So my idea was, or my solution was, to create a new variable which I called loops, and I'm gonna set it equal to 0. So this has to be outside of the main loop, inside of our main function. So each time we have a new loop, so I misspelled it, loops. So each time we start a new loop, I want to increment that variable. You'll see why we need these You'll see why we need this in a moment. So loops plus equals 1, and now inside of our update function of our Dino class, so right here, let me see, right here, I'm going to receive, or we're going to receive a new param called loops, and we want to change our texture num, or in other words, our texture, only when loops is in a specific value. So let's see, I'm gonna type the following. So if loops model 4, for example, equals 0, we are gonna change it. So let me explain it. So this if statement basically is telling us, okay, I'm gonna change the texture or the texture num only or just when the loops, the loops variable is a multiple of 4. So in the first loop, this is not gonna be true, and the second loop is not gonna be true, and the third one is not gonna be true. But in the fourth one, in the 8th one, and the 12th, this is going to be true, and it's going to change the texture. So this is going to somehow add a delay to our, well, to our update method or to our set texture method. I don't know if that's clear, but let's see if it works. So inside of the main function, we are gonna send our loops variable. So you can change this 4 to a 10 to a 20, so whatever you want. This number is the one responsible of, well, telling us how slow or how fast our Dino is going to move. So make sure to play with this number. So I'm gonna run the file to see if it works. So yeah, as you can see, well, our Dino is now moving, I mean, more realistic, right? Because it was too fast. So as I told you, you can play with these numbers. So let's say if I put a 5, no, let's put a 1, no, I'm sorry, let's put a 2. This is going to be faster, as you can see. But if I put a 10 here, it's going to be, well, much more slower. So yeah, make sure to play with this number. You can also, well, create a variable for this, but I'm gonna leave it like this. I'm gonna use 4 also. And yeah, so we fixed that bug that we had. Okay, so the last thing we want to do is make our Dino jump once we press the spacebar key, right? So let's start coding it. So let's go to our init method. We're gonna add some other properties. The first one is going to be self.dy, and this is going to be the basically the speed in which our Dino is going to jump. So dy is going to be 3. Sorry. We're going to add also something called gravity. We're not gonna be coding exactly gravity. We're just using a constant for it, and it will simulate the gravity. This is going to be equal to 1.2. You'll see in a moment what are these values for when we start, well, coding the physics. We're gonna add some booleans. One is gonna be called on ground, and this is going to be equal to true. This is going to tell us if our Dino is on the ground or if it's jumping. We're gonna have one called jumping. This is false at the beginning. We're gonna have one called falling, and this is false also. And we're gonna leave it like this for now. We're missing some other values, but we'll come to them later. Okay, so let's create some useful methods. The first one is gonna be called jump. We're gonna receive self. This is not the method responsible of making our Dino jump. You can change the name. This is the one, how can I explain it? This is the one responsible of setting these variables or these booleans to the value that they need to be when we are jumping. So let me code it. It will be much more clear. So if we jump, we obviously want to make our jumping boolean, well, equal to true, and we want our on ground boolean to be false. So as I told you, this is not going to be responsible of making or actually making our Dino will jump. The method responsible of that is going to be the update. This is just changing the booleans. So we're gonna create one called full self as param. So we're gonna put jumping equal false, and we want to put on ground, no, I'm sorry, falling equals true. Now the last method that we want to create is the method stop. We're gonna receive self as parameter. This is the one responsible of telling us, okay, we already completed the jump and we are now again on ground, right? So we're gonna put self.falling to be false and on ground to be true. You'll see why we need these booleans, but okay, again, these three methods are just going to be responsible of setting these booleans, jumping, on ground, and falling, either to true or false, depending on the action. Now let's go ahead and code the physics, and this is going to be inside of our update method. I'm actually adding a comment here. Oh, I'm sorry. This is going to be walking, and we just want to walk if we are not jumping or falling, right? So we're gonna create some ifs before this if statement. So the first one is going to be if self.jumping. So if we are jumping, we're gonna do something. Elif self.falling, we're gonna do something else. And elif or else, no, elif, I'm sorry. If we are not jumping or falling, we need to walk, because in other words, we are on ground, right? Let me put some comments here. So jumping and falling. Okay, so let's start by coding the jumping method. This is basically going to affect our self.y coordinate, so this one. So go ahead and type self.y plus equals, minus equals, because remember in Pygame to go up, we need to decrease the values. And this is going to be minus self.dy. So this value that we created here. Now we're gonna add a new property. So right here, after the self.jumping, we're gonna add the following: self.jump stop. And this is going to be equal to, let me see, this is going to be equal to 10. So jump stop is basically telling us where do we want to stop the jump. Because if we don't stop the jump, well, the Dino is basically moving upward to the infinite, and we don't want that. So self.dy minus dy, and then we want to check if self.y is less than or equal to self.jump stop. Well, we want to start falling, right? So we want to call the self.fall. Remember, fall is not going to be responsible of actually falling. It's just going to be responsible of setting the booleans. And we need the booleans because inside of our update method, we are going to update the position of our Dino depending on the booleans. So it's all connected. And okay, this is pretty much the jumping method. Now let's start fall. So inside of the falling method, we want to type the following: self.y plus equals, because we want to go down, remember, self.gravity times self.dy. We're basically doing the same as the jumping method, but we're going down in this case because of the positive sign. And the gravity is just a constant that it's being multiplied by the speed that we set our Dino to have. Because when falling, we need the Dino to go faster because it has a gravity. Now the next thing we want to check is if self.y is actually less than or equal to a new property that we are going to create in a moment called full stop. Full stop. Now, the same thing as jumping. We don't want the fall to go to minus infinity or to infinity. We want it to stop. So let's create that self.full stop, and that is going to be equal to our self.y, so the initial position. Awesome. Now, if this is true, well, it means we are on ground again, so we can call our stop method. So right here. So I really hope this is being clear. If you are having problems, well, understanding this, try to go, I don't know, step by step coding these things and try to do it yourself. Pause the video and try to do it yourself, and it will probably make more sense if you will code it by yourself. Okay, so the last thing we want to do is, well, add the line of code that is going to, well, tell the program or the game that each time we press the spacebar key, we want to jump. So right here inside of our events, I'm gonna put a comment, events, we want to type the following. So if event dot key equals pygame dot k underscore space. So basically, in other words, if we press the spacebar key, we want to make our Dino dot jump. Now, this is going to work, but I want to add one more thing. Now, if Dino on ground, we can jump, because we don't want to jump if we are jumping or falling, you know? This prevents a potential hack to our game. So okay, I think this may work. So I'm gonna save the file, I'm gonna run it to see if it works. Okay, we have a problem. It says event object has no attribute key. Yeah, my bad. So we need to add if event dot type equals pygame dot key down. Then we can do this. So yeah, we need to check first if we're pressing a key, and then we can check what key did we press. Now it should work. Okay, so we have our Dino. I'm gonna press the spacebar key, and we're not falling. Okay, we have a problem. So okay, let me see. Let's go to our update. Function. Okay, so we have a problem here. This should be greater than or equal. But I'm not sure if that fixes our bug. Oh, it actually does. Okay, yeah, so the problem was this. So yeah, guys, I think it's all for this video. Make sure to test your game and make sure it's working correctly. I want you to see that once we jump, the Dino stops walking or moving his legs, and this is because of these if statements. But I actually want to add one line of code right here on the walking if. So we'll if self.onGround and the loops logic. You don't have to add this line of code, but I want to be explicit that we are walking just when we are on the ground, right? So yeah, it should work. So yeah, make sure to play with the values. Make sure to play with the dy with the gravity, with the jump stop and the fall stop, and well, make sure to choose some values that you like for your game. I'm gonna go with the ones right here. So yeah, that is all for this video, guys. In the next video, we're gonna be coding the obstacles of the game. So yeah, that's all for this video. I hope you like it. I hope you are liking the series, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.